Welcome to our midweek message. I'm Pastor Reed, coming to you from First Baptist Church of Olathe. I'm so glad that you're taking the opportunity to watch, to listen this last reflection on our Lenten scripture reading, the Gospel of Luke. As I was reading this scripture, this chunk of scripture, it got me thinking about the different paths that we take in life. One of the beautiful things about Facebook is that I've been allowed to be able to watch the progression of people's lives that I haven't really been able to keep in touch with on a consistent basis. I've watched them have kids. I've watched them get married. I've watched them buy houses. I've watched them flourish and thrive. And some people, their experiences were right out of the gate. They knew what they wanted to do. They got their education. They got their job. They got their family. They got and their experiences are a little bit more linear. And I've also watched as people that maybe didn't know what they wanted to do, and they've struggled a bit to figure out life. And then I've watched people that knew what they wanted to do, and then things outside of their control kind of took over. The pandemic, I know, has been a struggle. Was a struggle for a lot of people. People with home businesses or service home businesses like massage and yoga and those sorts of things were difficult for people to be able to make a living, and restaurants were difficult for some people to be able to make a living. As people have experienced a lot of loss during the pandemic. And so those people's lives have been a little bit more all over the place. I think that's okay. I don't know that we necessarily need to have linear lives, but what we need to do is we need to trust and believe that as we go through those ups and downs, twists and turns that life can throw at us, that we choose to remain faithful to the one who has called us to be his. Peter was one of the first disciples called. Simon Peter meets Jesus when Jesus shows up preaching along the shore of the Sea of Gennesaret in Luke 5:1-11, and he hops in the boat and has Simon Peter push him out, and he begins to preach from the boat, and then he comes in and then he has Peter go out and fish again, and he ends up with this miraculous catch, and so Peter right then and there, Jesus extends the call to follow, and he says, "Yes, I'm going to follow." Like, you're so high above me, but I want to follow you. And then Peter is the first one to be able to admit, to be able to verbalize who Jesus really is. And in Luke 9:18-21, it says, "Now it happened that as he was praying alone, the disciples were with him. And he asked them, 'Who do the crowds say that I am?' And they answered, 'John the Baptist, but others say Elijah, and others that one of the prophets of old has risen.' And then Jesus said to them, 'But who do you say that I am?' And it was Peter who answered, 'The Christ of God.'" Peter was the first to be called. Peter was the first to be able to verbalize who Jesus was. Things are going swimmingly. It's like gold star Peter, gold star Peter. And then we come to this prediction that Jesus gives as he is preparing to leave them. He says in 22:34, "I tell you, Peter, the rooster will not crow this day until you deny 3 times that you know me." And then we see Peter deny Jesus 3 different times in verses 54-62. And so at this point, you're thinking, this guy who started off really well, who saw Jesus, believed in Jesus, followed Jesus, was able to articulate who Jesus was, has now crumbled under the weight of pressure. And sometimes that can feel like our journey. So sometimes we understand who Jesus is, and we walk with him, we choose him, and yet the weight of this world can come crashing in on us, and we can lose faith, we can lose hope, we can lose sight of who he is. If that expresses your story, if that describes where you've been, know this: Jesus hasn't left you. And in fact, after Jesus is hung on the cross, and after Jesus rises from the dead, and after Jesus appears to the disciples and to Thomas in the upper room, or in the room that's locked, and Jesus appears to Peter and John, and he restores them. And I just want to read that to you. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Feed my lambs." He said to him a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep." He says, "Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go." Peter, the one who saw and understood first, had his struggle. But here comes Jesus, and he restores him not simply to a member of the family, but he restores him to the place of leadership that he had called him to all along. Know that if your journey has been an up and down, that Jesus hasn't left you, and that he is calling you to be restored to the future that he has for you, one that is beautiful and is full. Respond to the call with a simple yes. Yes, Jesus, I love you, and follow him. Be blessed, be a blessing.